Welcome to Impact and Influence, the podcast for current and emerging leaders to build on leadership capability, sustainability, and purpose. This series opens the door to what's possible to build a life in leadership by design, not by default. Brought to you by Regrowth Consultancy, powered by Flick It Over. Flick It Over is a leading electronic software platform. Flick It Over provides industry-specific solutions to improve process, client experience, and efficiencies. Make your document delivery and workflow seamless with Flick It Over.
Welcome back to another episode of Impact and Influence. Sarah Bell from MRI, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's I just asked you a minute ago what your actual title is these days, and you are the Senior Director of Ecosystem and Strategy. Did I get that right at MRI?
Ecosystem strategy.
Sorry, I knew I'd get it wrong.
And that's because it's not a job title that you would normally find in an organization, but MRI's, kind of fundamental spine of the way its products work is to be open and connected, and we collaborate first. We believe in client success through client choice. We have a whole department that manages how we interface on behalf of our clients with the ecosystem.
You have been around the real estate space for a long time now.
Hard to believe because I look so young.
I know, me
Lauren.
too. Me too. So a lot of people are familiar with you, but for those who aren't, what I always found fascinating is that you actually started out in a real estate business. Can you tell us kind of your leadership journey from then to now?
I was working in a university as a research scientist, and I was working as well for the Commonwealth Ombudsman as an investigator. I met this handsome 6'4" auctioneer at a party one weekend, and one thing led to another, and I was abducted into the real estate industry, and James had taken over the family real estate business. And I guess a couple of pregnancies into our relationship, I thought I'd join along. And so my take on real estate came from a very analytical space, and one where I was obviously, quite comfortable with data and systems and structure, and I've always had a balance of science between hard science and soft science in my kind of behavioral analytics background as well. And so, coming into real estate, it's like the perfect arena for all of that to come together, because there is hard systems that we deal with. There's transaction, there's management, there's data of, flying all around the ecosystem related to assets that are very tangible and very real. But the decisioning and the processes and the kind of social side of real estate encompasses all of the emotionality and irrationality that flies in the face of a lot of the hard science. And so, as I've gone on with my, leadership journey, and also my continued kind of academic journey, my research has been transdisciplinary. It's been looking at, well, when we take the hard and the soft and we put it together, what do we end up with, and what's the meaning here? And so, most recently my research doctorate was a transdisciplinary look at prop tech and real estate and how that works, and relies on social forces as well as all of the hard science of data and the legal frameworks and trust architecture and all of that stuff. So it hasn't been a very typical real estate journey, but I've managed property, I've sold property, I sat at the front desk during particularly challenging pregnancy. with very bad morning sickness. I've run auction campaigns, I'm familiar with the matter of real estate, and that's been just the best foundation from the front lines from which to take into kind of that more macro journey of system design and then coding those systems into technology.
Well, I guess, it's, for my simple brain, it's like you get it, so you know the problems that you're solving, because that's essentially, when we think about tech, and it's solving the problems, but you really have that kind of unique understanding of both worlds, which I'd say most of us in the industry don't, to your level of understanding. But you just love that innovation and that data and that problem solving so much. And I've got questions upon questions around that. But I think when you're leading teams through that change management space, when it comes to AI, like implementation of AI or even just, tech systems, like how do you bring your team through that? And what are the lessons for leaders that are listening when they're, because there's so much change and evolution in that space in real estate at the moment? What's your advice to someone that's really going through that change space?
Yeah, there's so many definitions of leadership, right? And there's sort of right answers and unpopular answers. But for me, I think the one that's sort of most true to my values and then probably my personality and way of leadership is when I think about that role in a world that is moving as quickly as ours is. Your job is to be a learner. Your number one job is to be a learner and a driver of learning, because no one's born knowing this stuff. No one can keep up with this stuff. In order to stay ahead of that change curve, in order to kind of surf these waves of disruption rather than, be wiped out by them, the antidote to that is learning, and learning has to come from a place of curiosity, not because you're being made to, not because it's happening to you, but curiosity and learning is that's your ticket to AI empowerment as opposed to AI enslavement. And I think that will be the great division moving forward. Are you empowered by AI or have you been enslaved by it?
And do you still find that there's a lot of resistance in our industry around that space?
The answer is probably more complex than that, because I think, when you're in the midst of change, you've got people moving through it in different cohorts. So there's always going to be, the Luddites or the resistance. And, there's probably a place for them as well. Like there is a place for a very high service, very old fashioned, people first, people only, real estate operation, right? That's a business model that will survive in the same way that, I buy, 100-year-old starter $20 sourdough bread from, that's been cooked overnight and all the rest of it. Like that there is a slow movement, right, that people are prepared to pay for. It doesn't scale. You can't do it, but people will always seek artisans in whatever arena, and they're prepared to pay premium for that. So I don't want to write that off as like a business model that won't survive or won't work, because I think that narrative's unhelpful, but it should be a deliberate choice, right? And you make your choice that that's going to be my business model and that's what I'm going to do. I still think that type of business model can be supported by AI. And I think everybody else really has to make a decision then about how they are going to use AI, because AI itself, and, I've been working in AI for over 10 years now. So I'm so fatigued by just AI being said as this blanket thing like AI, right? Because it's not. AI is just a tool, and the phrase AI covers breadth of collection of tools. But when we look at intelligent transformation in a business, it starts way before selection of tooling. It starts in service design and strategic decisioning around what you want work to look like, what you want service design to be, how you want customers to experience your professional service delivery, what you're going to charge for it, and where AI should be implemented in that journey to support those decisions, as opposed to just, with a use case and a value case, as opposed to just implementing tools or being AI.
Yeah.
Which is kind of meaningless, right? And can be counterproductive.
Absolutely. And I think it's like every piece of, tech that's implemented into business, you have to almost tailor it to suit your systems, your process, your client experience, your team, all of those things. So it's so funny because I was thinking about this on the drive down around, our ethos around like tech and AI being there to support efficiencies and provide, options and solutions for client choice. But it's never about replacing that connection and that relationship that we have at the forefront of what we do in real estate. And you've sort of answered that, but I'd love your thoughts on that as well, around that, maintaining that connection, even though you're still an AI, well, not even AI driven, but you're still kind of at the forefront of, if your business is at the forefront of using and implementing innovation and tech.
Yeah. So if you look at any business, right, there's kind of three bits that go on in any business, right? There's the strategic part of it, which is where you make those decisions about what the rest of the business is going to be. So those design and decide, I call it, and that part of the business is usually done by leadership, hopefully in consultation with the team and hopefully with empathy for the customers and hopefully with intelligence from the market and the geography and all of that, those other signals. That's not an easy job, and it shouldn't be a blueprint, and it shouldn't be a one size fits all, because that's how you win, right? That's how you differentiate and win versus your competitors. And I'm super passionate about that. I don't think we talk about that stuff enough. I don't think we think about it enough. I don't think we teach or learn it enough. But that's your kind of your why and your what in your business, right? And then the execution or the how part is covered by, two functions, and the roles are kind of immaterial, but there's field stuff, right? That's close to customer, that is fee earning. And then there's factory stuff that is supporting fee earning activities. That's your back end machine that supports the execution. And so when you've got, high value resources like real estate agents, like, buyer's agents, that they should be in the field, right? Their time is best spent, maximized in the field at the customer interface, because that's where fees are earned. Fees come from conversations, which are the result of having permission. Permission comes from relationships, right? So none of that stuff, I think, should be intermediated with AI, right? So when people are in the real estate zone and they want to deal with a human, putting an AI there is completely undermining the value of the field, which is something we want to protect. Whereas the factory, completely reversed. When you're in an appraisal, you can't answer your phone, right? So we see outsourcing has been a great solution to that, and I think that there's still a place for that. But we've seen the use cases proven by outsourcing, and now I'm seeing really, really smart businesses so focused on optimizing their time in the field that their factory is a combination of outsourcing and bot sourcing. And so the factory piece that powers them, that does all of the system work behind them, is low cost, optimized, human where it needs to be, machine enabled where it needs to be. And the collective intelligence across that, that division of labor is what gets scale without diminishing humanity and that people business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, when there's that, I'll say argument, I'm not sure if that's the right word, around, taking over and taking our roles. Like, you've nailed it, because it's like, it can't, when we have to be at the forefront of a people-driven industry.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it comes down to service design. Like, if I was a real estate agent, I wouldn't use an AI solution to proactively make phone calls, right?
Yeah.
Or to deal with my vendors, or to deal with buyers, right? But if I can't answer my phone, it goes to voicemail, which is a terrible experience for a customer. And voicemail is a machine. That's a terrible experience for me, because it's literally triple handling everything. I would absolutely use an AI system to answer my phone when I can't do it. Because that's a different proposition, right? And then I would get that AI to summarize that to me so that when I call back, it's not, oh, hey, I missed your call.
Which is what we all do. I mean, I don't listen to voicemail, right?
No one listens to voicemail. Like, just if anyone gets my voicemail, don't bother. Send me a text. But if I was an agent, when I make that call back, I want to be fully briefed on what the conversation was. I would like that AI agent to not have just had an assistant level conversation with somebody that's called me, but they've been able to go around into my CRM and into my email and gather an intelligence brief to support my next conversation with that person. So that when I call them back, it's an intelligent, informed conversation. And most of all, that conversation, which is field conversation, is highly valuable.
Yeah.
The customer then doesn't have to go, oh yeah, I want an appraisal. It's like, well, you said that to my assistant. I've got all of the information here and I can give you an informed, great experience, as opposed to, oh yeah. No, I saw that on the message. Okay, well, I'll go away and I'll do my research now. And like, it gives us speed, it gives us scale, it gives us service when it's implemented in the right use case. But is it going to go out and proactively do my prospecting? No, because no one asked for that phone call.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really great example because you're right. It speed to service or speed delivery of service is so imperative in what we do and is such a point of difference. That I think that's such a great example. But also what I was thinking about as you were speaking then is it comes back to the data that you also have. Talk to us about the importance of having, clean data and, collecting the right information and what that should look like in your business.
So one of the benefits of large language models and generative AI is that it's able to cope with unstructured imperfect data. That doesn't mean it doesn't do better with structured perfect data, but I live in the real world and there's also no such thing. So there's two parts to this. If we follow the example that I just gave, you can see the importance that data plays in the supply chain, right? So for that agent to research and synthesize and brief you, it has to have access to the right information about your customer. So that means that information has to be collected, organized, and stored somewhere in your CRM. Now, if you're going to use generic tools, Claude, ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever your flavor is, they're not going to have access to the right data, right? So you will only ever get from those tools a synthesis prediction based on information that is available to everyone. But the way to solve putting your particular data context into a tool like that is either through a formal governed API partnership, right, which keeps your data sovereign. It governs rules around how processes like Claude can use your data, as opposed to if you just upload it through the interface, it then becomes the controller and effective owner of that data. So that's problematic because what you know about your customers is no longer what you know about your customers. Or you can connect those types of tools, to your data that's in your CRMs, like Vault, for example, using something called an MCP server. And one of the we talked about learning right at the beginning of this. One of the issues with learning is that we like to make these things highly technical and highly complicated. So when we talk about things like MCP servers, and algorithms, people's brains turn off, right? Yes. But none of this stuff, I promise, is actually hard to understand when you learn and when you break it down. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And if you kind of break down the words, there's some clues as to how that works. So the model is Claude or ChatGPT, right? The large language model. What it has is access to all kinds of general information and does a pretty sophisticated job of formulating things. What it doesn't have is your context. So the context of the data that's sitting in your systems. And in order to, as I said before, the problem is connecting a tool like that to your data safely, which would require a protocol, model context protocol. And so an MCP server is how we connect great tools like that to your data safely. And then you can, use Claude or whatever you like in conjunction with Vault to, give you your open home list, or activate a call list for me, or, ask for a list of appraisals that you did last quarter that haven't become listings with any of your competitors, right? And so when you combine the power of the model with the context of your data and a safe way for that to connect, model context protocol, that's when you can really scale your factory, right? So data plays a role there in the context part, but to use it, you need model and protocol also, otherwise things could go very wrong.
And I know I'm listening, kind of go to, skeptical brain that I have sometimes goes straight to that risk element, that if your team don't understand the importance of how to do this properly, there's a massive risk to the business.
Oh, 100%. And that's why that's why that learning piece is so important. Be a learner, be a driver of learning. Because I do go and I see people instruct people on how to use AI all the time, or they say things like data doesn't matter, because, and I sit there and I, have breakout in hives at some of the stuff I hear, because it's, this is complex, and I'm not going to pretend that it isn't. And so I want everyone to listen to the AI revolution and listen to everything that everyone has to say, including to me, with critical thinking, right? And being independently thoughtful. So this is where the learning part comes in, right? And none of it's hard. Like when you understand it, you're like, well, that makes sense. There's a model, there's context, we're connecting it safely. But if someone just says MCP server over and over again at you, it creates it creates a privilege of knowledge, right? And that is what's dangerous, in my view. So data plays that role in providing both general intelligence from the model and specific contextual advantage from your data. But then what these automated systems do is, the more and more they're working with your data, the more and more you are automating the capture of the data exhaust that they're creating. So in the example that we used before, where an AI was going to answer an inbound call while I'm in the lounge room doing an appraisal, and then go and do other work, it's going to create notes and everything. All of that exhaust from all of that activity is structured, captured, synthesized, summarized, and stored in your system, so it's there for recall and better context moving forward. And so data is fundamental to working with AI well and AI properly. And we haven't even begun to talk about, mining it for signal and and using it. But in the most basic of examples, you see where data plays a role in the supply chain. And so data and AI, you can't separate the two of them. It's like having a Ferrari with no fuel in the tank. That's how they work together.
So the message for everyone listening is that you still need to have that database that's clean and updated, and you're still working with it so that you can get the best out of AI.
Yeah, 100%. You don't need to obsess over it, right? Like AI is smart enough to read the sloppy notes that are in there, right? Like it has to be clean, and in one sense, I talk to the kids about cleaning their rooms. I want it doesn't need to be hospital clean, right? Is what I say to them, but it needs to be clean. I need to know what stuff goes where, and that's what we're talking about.
I love that.
There's no such thing as perfect data. I see people go and spend millions of dollars cleaning their database, and it becomes like Nan's good couch in the lounge room with plastic on that no one can sit on. or use because they're obsessed with like clean, perfect data. It has to be clean enough.
And with let's talk MRI for a moment, I guess, because this is kind of, the part that you work on within your role at MRI. What do we need to know about what you're rolling out in this space?
Yeah, so look, MRI is such an exciting place to work at, right? From an innovation lens, and as we're rolling out all of this stuff, we're adopting it as well. So it's not like we're not tasting the soup. So when I talked before about, MCP servers, we're a Microsoft shop in our factory, in our back end. So we have the advantage of the same tooling, right? So we use Copilot like most Microsoft shops do. We have a model context protocol that connects Microsoft Copilot to which is, that kind of powered by GPT, OpenAI modeling, that connects to all of our enterprise data. So I can ask Copilot safely to read the last QBR deck and let me know what the 3 most important projects I need to work on this week are. Right, because it has that context, and it's a hugely powerful tool for us because it's an interface with the factory, and our factory is as complex and as global as you can possibly imagine, and we're transforming. So the tools that we're using in-house to scale our factory and be more available in the field is exactly the pattern that we're rolling out. So, we've got Ascend coming up in August. Very poor planning. It's on my birthday. So come along to Ascend, which is MRI's large, user conference where you can find out lots of things and stay for the networking party / my birthday party.
I love it.
And come and have a look at, come and have a play with model context protocols, working with your Vault data, right? Like come and see this. We've got some, just super exciting things around, around these workflows. And I think if we think about how traditional software is, it's the system of record. That's the role it's always played. And then we are the user of the software. It's our job to interrogate and make sense of it. I think with the AI revolution, I think the way that we conceive of working with software is changing, and it's moving from a much more passive place of being that system of record that we use to being a system of decisions that we collaborate with. And it's almost like it's alive, and that's what AI is. It's a quasi-social collaborator that we can relate with. And I just, I'm so excited at everything that I see rolling out of product at the moment and what we'll be able to showcase there, because you're really going to get a look at what the future of your operations and workflow in real estate is like. So I couldn't be more excited about that. Even though it's on my birthday, Lauren. And so I think, in terms of operations, that's a super exciting part. And then, the other part of having a really great business, which you and Kylie know and preach and are devotees of more than anyone, is having really good data-driven decisioning. And so, MRI's put so much effort over the last 5 years into building the right plumbing, because to get all of that fragmented data from the ecosystem that we talked about into one place so that it can be contextualized, synthesized, interrogated, and actually produce intelligent recommendations to be a reliable system of decisions. That plumbing work is critical and vital. And so data-driven decisions and AI and agentic enabled operations of work is is the future of real estate. But again, none of that deviates from the why. The why of all of that is to power up your factory so that every second you're spending in the field is customer centric and valuable.
Yeah. And the way I look at it is be curious around what's available. Just, don't go in there with eyes open or eyes closed, or just be really curious around what's available, what's going to work for your business, work for your team. And it's just moving so quickly that we have to just continue that curiosity thought process. I'm curious as to what you would challenge for leaders in the industry about changing their curiosity around just one assumption or an assumption about AI and tech in that space.
Yeah, I think they're hitting, like going to these events or going into these sorts of things with a framework that you're shopping for a set of tools is probably the wrong framework. Because you're always going to be buying tools and you're always going to be upgrading your tools. But if you think about it instead as what I'm looking to do is acquire capabilities in my business, right? There's a real difference between a dumb tool that you have to use to execute and a capability of like, what is the capability that this brings to my business? And in particular, anything that compounds capability. So anything that is done repeatedly that is going to be learned and improved, right? Compounding capability is the absolute utopia for the shopping list on how you should be looking at technology moving forward.
Great piece of advice. Sarah, I know your time is very precious, so I really, really appreciate you joining us and all of those insights today. Hopefully there's a bit more curiosity in that space now, and no doubt you'll have a few people reach out to you.
Thank you so much. I always love a chat with you, Lauren, and I appreciate your time and the invitation to join you today.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Impact and Influence. Click follow to get notified about future episodes. Leaving a review helps others find the podcast. And to learn more about our courses, our study tours, conferences, keynote topics and our services, or how simply we might be able to help support you in taking you to places you never thought possible, please visit regrowthkyliewalsh.com. Impact and Influence, brought to you by Regrowth Consultancy, powered by Flick It Over. Flick It Over is a leading electronic software platform. Flick It Over provides industry-specific solutions to improve process, client experience and efficiencies. Make your document delivery and workflow seamless with Flick It Over.